The race for president is officially underway with the first contest to pick a nominee completed with the Iowa Caucuses. Trump took the first spot in Iowa by a landslide with over 56,000 votes. His nearest competitor, Ron DeSantis, was nearly 30 points behind, and Nikki Haley was just on DeSantis' heels, behind by just 2 percentage points.
The field of candidates is also narrowing, with Vivek Ramaswamy dropping out after coming in 4th. Joining us now is Iowa political director Dave Price.
Dave, while Donald Trump walked away with a 30-point lead, he is a former president. Is that still considered a commanding lead?
Well, historically, it's the biggest one ever, so undoubtedly the former president will point to that. The questions coming into the night would be, how dominant would a difference have to be, and does he need to get 60% of the share, 65%, or is 50 enough? Democrats are pointing to some of these numbers saying, okay, fine, he won big, but you essentially have half the people who turned out who wanted Trump, half the people wanted somebody else. As you go down the list, though, pretty disappointing night for Ron DeSantis, who had said he was going to win. Instead, he loses by 30 points, despite having the endorsement of Iowa's governor, despite traveling to all 99 counties, despite almost living here for the past year. Now, he says he's going to move on to New Hampshire, but if you look at the way things look in New Hampshire, where it's a primary rather than a caucus, so you have greater participation, you have more independence, you have a different kind of electorate out there. Nikki Haley is much better positioned in the polls. She is close to Donald Trump, where DeSantis is way far down, so it's tougher to see a path to victory for DeSantis. There's at least one you can come up with a little easier for Nikki Haley, but big picture, Donald Trump was the overwhelming favorite to get the nomination, and he still is, and a 30-point win in Iowa will only help that.
And Dave, with so much focus on Trump's legal troubles, is there more of a focus on that second place finisher in Iowa and New Hampshire, and even in the months ahead?
Maybe so, and at some point, like, let's take Nikki Haley, for example. She really wants to have this race be a two-person race, Trump and Haley. And so then if the scenario plays out like it did in Iowa, where you had half for Trump, half for somebody else, then it becomes more feasible. Now, whether she can do that, we have to see. She needs to be close to New Hampshire now, which the primary there is a week from today. And again, it's tough to see how DeSantis finagles his way through this. He's really going to need to up it a lot. But Chris Christie's out of the race, the former New Jersey governor. You already mentioned Ramaswamy has dropped out of the race and has endorsed Trump. So there aren't nearly as many competitors. So now we see, even with basically 3 main competitors for New Hampshire, then how does that shake out? Or does Trump dominate again and essentially end the race? Haley, though, like I mentioned, pretty competitive there, though, so it's not over yet.
Yeah, not over yet. Thanks, Dave. And with the Iowa caucuses in the books, the spotlight is now on next week's New Hampshire primary.
Joining us now is Melissa Cooney from our sister station in Burlington, Vermont. She's live at the snowy Manchester-Boston Airport in New Hampshire, where candidates are expected to arrive this morning.
Nikki Haley spent a lot of resources campaigning in New Hampshire. However, Donald Trump is a former president. What's it predicted to happen in the primaries?
Good morning, Kristen and Jackie. That's correct. Now, we know political analysts have told us that because Donald Trump already does have a loyal support base here in New Hampshire and a well-established reputation, that could help him win the New Hampshire primary. That being said, recent polls have shown that Nikki Haley is closing in on Donald Trump. New Hampshire is a purple state, and that means that independent voters can vote in the primary of their choice. Political analysts we spoke with say it's not out of the question that some that might have been Democrats switch to vote in the Republican primary to boost Haley. So we'll certainly have to see how that shakes out. As you mentioned, she has spent a lot of time here, as well as an endorsement from Governor Chris Sununu.
Melissa, Ron DeSantis campaigned heavily in Iowa. While he had a second-place finish in the state, how will that translate in New Hampshire?
Yeah, that's right. Compared to some other candidates like Haley, Ron DeSantis hasn't spent as much time here in New Hampshire, and we know he isn't polling as well either. We also know that he went from Iowa to South Carolina, we're told, but it's our understanding that he'll be back in New Hampshire later in the week for those debates that are happening throughout the week here. So, of course, that will could play a role in how things move, especially with those debates. So we'll have to see how that plays out as well.
Melissa, thank you. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG TV 9. It's 6:52.